All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome. This is RPG with DBJ. I welcome all creatives, community, and kind folks to this Third Pillar Thursday. I have to do a little preamble as this propagates through the interwebs, letting people know, be notified that we have gone live. So, what is Third Pillar Thursday? Well, we know what Thursday is, but the third pillar of gaming is the pillar of exploration. And it's something that I hold close to my heart. So the first two pillars are combat, and the second one is social interaction. But the third pillar is about exploration. And for me, I kind I guess a subcategory of that would be of exploration is using the environment. Yeah, yeah, using the environment and in many ways, it's like using the environment to create very unique locations to have like combat and interactions and stunt work and all the cool things we see in our movies and television. Um, uh, by the way, those in the chat and basically anyone else, at some point, we're going to have a conversation because I never see the ads, like the monetization portion of it. So let me know how annoying that is, and I will cut off certain things if it's difficult to get in and get past certain things because I never see it. So just let me know that in for future reference. Okay, normally not normally all the time when I make up these the idea of having a weekly theme, like this week's theme is family ties and legacy, and using that in our tabletop RPGs. And I often challenge myself because I never write any notes down. I very rarely look things up, and I do that on purpose. I really try to come to these live streams with an open mind, no information, on the fly, because I feel like that's it. Not only is it a test for me to really pull on my own creativity, also I feel like others are probably coming to these situations in the same way. If you're at the table and a player comes to you with some off the wall idea, it's really great to get the gears in the head moving. JP, what's going on there, man? All right, so how are we going to use the environment with family ties and legacy and what we were talking about before? And it really didn't hit me until about like 2 minutes before we got on air, and that's usually when I'm like, oh, that's what I'm thinking of. Oh, Dead Man Storyteller, and it's how we were able to squirrel you. Yeah, that's absolutely correct. But I'd rather be I'd rather be me instead of instead of trying to write like 6 pages of copy and just reading it out and being deadpan about it. So my impression, my way of thinking of the environment and using it in the tabletop RPG is one aspect of it is taking a familiar region and flipping it on its head due to time and circumstance. Let me be a little bit more specific and probably fade away slightly from Dungeons and Dragons, although we tend to use that as a default, but I'm going to fade away slightly from it. All right. And I'm going to set the context for what I'm going to talk about. All of you guys have seen television images on the news when the environment is destroyed. For example, there might be a hurricane or a tornado may sweep through a neighborhood. You may see aerial footage of a well-known mall on fire. You may see footage of a highway that you've driven down a ton of times, packed with snow, and there was a 37 car pileup. You've seen images of thick fog blanketing in the area that, bridges and underpasses you've seen before. You've seen building collapses and so many other things, floods and mudslides and earthquakes. And normally what will happen is you'll see the news will try to give you an image of before and after. And whilst many of us may not live in those regions where we see things like tsunami that sweep into a beach, or earthquakes or things of that nature, forest fires and what have you, natural disasters and unnatural ones, chemical spills, derailed rail lines, trains and things of that nature. While many of us may not live in those areas, those that do are hit to the core because it's a familiar region and it's now destroyed. Ricker said, "Just high noon." Yeah, where you are there. Yeah, it is high noon. So one of the things that is can be kind of difficult to do, but Scott Post says it's high 3 a.m. Yeah, you're in Arizona, man. Yeah, you're 3 hours behind me. That's crazy. Um, the thing that really hits people hardest is being familiar with the region. Now, in tabletop RPGs, it can be a little difficult to have players who are familiar with a particular location. Like, for example, in Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica, it's basically a whole plane or a whole planet that's one big medieval-ish or medieval-styled city. And having a region in your world where the players come back to very often, they come back to the same taverns, and there's the same castle, there's the same dock and dockmaster, the same school for orphan kids or something. um, it can be devastating to have the players come back 3, 4, 18 times and then have something devastating happen to that place. Deadman says, or worse, News says, quote, "The tsunami is incoming. Everyone goes down to the beach to see it, and they see a 5-foot wave." Yeah. That's weird how weird. Here we call it rubbernecking or Gawker delay. It's weird how human beings are both fearful of, yet equally or maybe even more powerfully drawn to dangerous things, life-threatening things, the force and power of nature, and even the force and power of humanity. A construction site that collapses, like I said, the derailed train, the recycling plant that catches on fire, or what have you, right? We're drawn to those things, the multi-car pileup, and we want to see the 18-wheeler dangling off the bridge and whatnot. Now we can do those things in our medieval games as well. The new keep being built, half built, that collapses, the torrential rainstorm, the storm waves hitting 30-foot waves slamming into the docks and flipping pirate ships over or something like that. Like, we can do those things. And Scott Post says the high of being close to death draws many. I absolutely agree with that. This isn't a bad thing, but I'm going to say it in a very rude way. It is the thankfulness of us not being victims of what happened. It's the driving slowly past the car accident and the tarps over the bodies of those that have passed because of the head-on collisions and the automobile that caught on fire. So I bring that up because it's the first thing. First of all, it's the first thing that pops into my mind, but also it's the idea of, here, I'm going to show you a common thing. I'm going to show you a street, a couple of buildings, a short, walk down a hill to the docks. There's like 5 docks, and there's some ships there. There's some children playing. I'm going to make this as mundane as possible, right? I'm going to show you the day in the life of X. Hey, you're adventurers. You've gone to the local tavern. There's an outdoor seating with a patio, just to make it different. And you're looking over the bay, and now I'm going to destroy it. I'm going to have fire sweep through. I'm going to have lightning strike down from the sky. I'm going to have the mudslides or rock slides come down and fall. I'm going to shake this place with an earthquake. And sometimes we don't do that, and I'm a proponent of it. I'm like, take it and destroy it. Take your world, take your region, take your most popular town, take the place that the players are familiar with, the place where they've settled down a little bit or made connections, and just destroy the hell out of it. Deadman says the AD&D 2 second edition Castle Builders Guide covered events like that and how they make the castle building harder. Absolutely. And we are familiar with our classic adventurers needing to go through there's a merchant's convoy or something. There's a very clear path for trade, and now the trade route's been blocked, and the players have to investigate why it's been blocked. Has it been is the cause because of bandits? Because we always have to have bandits, right? We kind of make fun of bandits on this channel, but yeah, there's bandits and they've blocked it by cutting down trees. Or is it something far more natural? Did a mudslide cover it, or rock slides, or overgrowth because of a lack of travel? Is it snow? Has a snowpack and an avalanche blocked the trade route, and why? And then maybe there's some other events happening. Did the stone giants knock stones down, or the frost giants bring with them heavy snows, and for them it's like, oh, it's not a valley anymore, it's a flat plain, we're just going to walk across it. That's a very common thing, and the idea is to destroy those things. Now I'm going to go a little deeper and maybe a little bit arcane, maybe a little more fantastical. The aftermath of what players do often is not revisited, and I think I don't want to say it's a lost opportunity. Well, yeah, I guess I will, because I've already said it. All right. Sometimes it can be a lost opportunity for what happens after the players totally kick the ass and dominate your world, right? They've killed your big bad guy. They've killed a bunch of goblinoids on the battlefield. They've killed your dragon. They've dispatched the lich. They've cut the head off of the fiend that was summoned by the evil cult and whatnot. Players wipe their hands of the whole thing. Hey, I'm done. Hey, I'm a hero. I'm going to go back to town. And what happens afterwards is hey, Fat Ninja GM, thank you for the coffee. I will pour into your coffee the sponsor of this show. Almond milk. Yes. No, not the sponsor. Sorry. That's just being stupid. Rickard says trade routes through the desert where strangely shaped ruins litter the landscape, having to take shelter in the ruins overnight, long since picked dry of treasure, but the lore is still in the walls. Absolutely. That is laughing. Also, like you're mentioning, a desert, right? Players go through, they see the sand blasted ruins of ancient walls and crypts. They go through, they maybe pass by it a day or a week or a month later. Then they come back through again, and maybe a sandstorm's uncovered an area or covered it over. Or the players have to take refuge within the ruins, and then a sandstorm blows through and dumps, a couple 100,000 tons of sand in their way, and now they've got to dig their way out. Maybe it's blocked. And what I'm saying is, I guess my point is that on the fly, sometimes we have to set up what the players see and feel. Hey, you come into town and there's only a street and a half, and there's a building on your left and another building on your right, and there's a library and a church and a tavern, your classic blacksmith or something. But we can also do that and then take all of that and then say, oh, there's also floodwaters are pouring in, and it's at your ankle. Now it's at your calves. Now it's hit your knees. Now it's on your thighs. Now it's at your waist. Like, we can take that and just destroy it and add in the tension of that going on. How many times have we burned down our local city because one of the players, one of the pyromancers wants to toss around their burning hand spell randomly in a local tavern, right? And just burn the place down. How about forest fires caused by nature, a lightning bolt, or by something the players did by knocking over a fire while they were attacking bandits on the road? We can add in those elements and then exploit them for our own benefit to create tension and drama, creating problems without solutions, right? That's a big thing. Tabletop terrors. James and Tim talk about that quite a bit. about creating problems and not solutions. Also, killing the big bad, the Tarask, the a giant, anything giant size, a giant dragon, ancient red or something. You kill it, and then what? Are the bones left there? Are there now creatures living in it? Does it bring a horde of scavengers and such? On my channel, I have a review of Salt in Wounds, which is a campaign setting completely built around the idea of a Tarask being slaughtered over and over again to keep it from being awakened, and a whole industry is built around it as they sell off the meat and the bones and harvest the brain matter and the organs. And there's a whole entourage of individuals who are nothing but like slayers that use the teeth of the Tarask as weapons and slice away at the flesh and stuff. And people are making concoctions out of the blood and whatnot. Anyway, it's really bizarre, but it's really cool. I can't wait for it to come out. It's been a Kickstarter forever. But my point being is that the ramifications of what the players do also can lead to creating great environmental effects. So despite the fact that this week we talk about family ties and legacy, the legacy portion of that, the players having a hand in reshaping the environment, the players having fought off a zombie horde now have brought the zombies into town or the ghosts or whatever their enemies may be. And now it's ravaged the countryside, and now it's coming into maybe an urban area, and the players have to fight in the streets and on rooftops and in back alleys and down in basements, and jumping from eaves, balconies and things like that, like basically using the environment to ramp up the tension. And then I often use the term use and abuse, letting the players lead an enemy onto an abandoned rooftop with the building's on fire and letting them fall through, or finding a stack of barrels of oil and then kicking out the little small wedge that keeps the barrels stacked nice and neatly, and having them roll down the hill and shatter and break and catch on fire. And or maybe they don't break at all. Then the archer in the group's like, I'm going to light an arrow and shoot the barrel and hope it explodes or something, and let those things happen. Letting them use elements within the environment. Now, going back to family and ties, because I do want to bring back, as best as I can before we get squirreled in our channel. Before we get into that I do want to bring up the family and ties. Oftentimes we have players exploring areas that they are unfamiliar with, right? The landing on an island, uncharted island, and no one's been there forever, or the players go down into a crypt and they're unsure what's around the corner. But I contend to you that it might be kind of cool to have the players go to a place that they're completely familiar with. A player who's a noble and goes back to their noble home, which might be a giant mansion behind stone walls or a castle, and give them the map of the region. Oh, as a kid, you used to play in the attic of the mansion, and what the maze cut hedges look like. I don't know if there were maze cut hedges in medieval times, but it doesn't really matter, right? The player who knows when they were a kid who ran in the streets as with other pickpocket kids knows the back alleys and hiding underneath the what are those things? Crawl spaces underneath the local buildings in the area and things, or what have you, and then turning that on its head, where sure, the rogue may have grown up in the city of thieves, but now the city of thieves is on fire or overrun with the undead, or storms have rolled in, and now there's thick fog and torrential rain, and 30-foot waves are slamming into the place. So the players return to one or more of the players return to a place that is their family home. It is the place they grew up with. It's the place as a soldier they return to when they spent 7 years on the front lines of a battle and whatnot, and then allow the players to use those areas. Hey, I know a place to hide. I know a place to take refuge. I know a place where we can hide because slaves that were freed, like the Underground Railroad, right? I know a place to hide because when I was a slave amongst these people, or I helped free these slaves, we used to hide them down in the basement. We can go down there to find shelter. Rickard says, going full Sicilian mobster, the big bad guy starts to burn down and destroy all the PC's old haunts to send a message to the PCs that they will destroy all they hold dear. Absolutely. You know what? While that's a trope in mass media, we don't use that in role-playing games. There's a lot of those tropes that we don't use. And when I say tropes, maybe I come across as, oh, it's just a thing we always see. But if we don't see it in our tabletop RPG, maybe it's something we need to see. There are plenty of bad guys, right? There's plenty of evil people who are like, hey, if I can't take it out on you, I'll take it out on victims that can't defend themselves, your relatives, your friends, the places you hold dear. Oh, that tavern that you loved? Yeah, I'm going to burn the place down. That dockside city, because you sail the high seas and the archipelagos and you go to the uncharted regions in this place. Yeah, that dock you return to, I'm going to stab the dock master and pin his body to the docks and summon a storm of the century that will batter this place. And maybe there's a giant elemental whose face is plastered against the high waves that keep slamming against the docks and whatnot. Also, there's the idea of flipping the environment on its head as well. I know I'm kind of focusing on the natural environment, but there is an unnatural portion of the environment as well. So, for example, maybe this place is it's tropical and it's sunny normally, and it's warm, and normally there's sunshine and very few clouds. And then you find out this place is getting ravaged by storms that normally do not, hit this protected bay. Maybe there's it's getting unseasonably strong snowstorms or blizzards or something. And those are things we can pull on that can storytellers like to use music and use the environment. They use colors, they use sounds to elicit a feeling that we want to express in what is happening within that region, right? And so we could do that in our own game. And along with say burning down the tavern that the players used to, burning down the old haunts and family home, there's compound events, right? Someone sets a building on fire, there's smoke, there's the idea that there's going to be collapsing timbers, so the building may start to collapse. There's crowds of people that may panic in a town, not knowing what to do. There are innocent people trapped. Do you try to save them? You can then, of course, on top of all this, layer in being attacked by agents of the person who really wants to take you down, even though the big bad enemy knows you're going to easily dispatch some of their enemies. The agents that they send after you, those agents don't know that. They've been hired or paid, or maybe they're loyal to the cult that's trying to kill you. And all these other things are going on. I mean, that's a big deal. The idea of a player character having to choose, do I attack 3 more hobgoblins, or do I save my mom who's being kidnapped by the bugbear who's dragging her out of the burning house? You know what I mean? Rickard says that village you spend so much time to save, no longer standing. Too bad. Yeah, you come back to ruins. Even if you don't want to make it as dynamic as I'm explaining, like, oh, it's happening during an earthquake or storms or a blizzard or fog rolls in or something. Bolts of lightning striking out of the sky, mudslides and rock slides and such. Maybe you come and it's the aftermath of the place. You smell, many heroes have in our mass media, television, movies, we've seen that where the hero crests the hill with a smile on their face, ready to return home, and they see smoke on the horizon. And then, of course, they pause a little bit on the hill, they panic, and then they ride or run as fast as they can in the town, and they just see the smoke, carbon-stained faces of the population, smoke rising from the village or the town building, what used to be the massive cathedral. We've seen that present day, right? You see, instead of the massive cathedral, all you see are the skeletal, the framework, the skeletal foundation of what used to be there, and smoke rising from it, and people sitting around in stunned or in awe or in shock. A small group of individuals still trying to put out small fires, like a bucket brigade or something, and the players are like, what the hell happened here? And then having interactions with that. Maybe there is an attack. Maybe the players have to pick through the remnants of the burned down library to find a book that they hope was locked away or something. Scott Post says, or they find people tree-like in that town in 300. Yeah, that nasty image of they come over the crest of the hill and they see a tree, but when you get closer, you're like, that's a weird looking spindly tree, and you find out that the tree, for lack of a better word, has the villagers stapled to the tree one by one with spears and arrows, and it's not really a tree at all, but it's like it's like dozens of people, or maybe even more, multiples of dozens, are pinned to the tree like some kind of like weird macabre ornaments to a Christmas tree or something. It's pretty nasty. But again, yeah, when the players come back to a place that they know, and it's just like, what the hell happened here? What's going on? And using that part of the environment to really express to them that things have changed, that things are different, and then that you as a GM are really willing to destroy what it is that you've created. And really, it's not necessarily destroying it, but to allow your world to change and to grow, and to basically be a vibrant place, a place that when the players leave, that it doesn't sit still. That happens to be an old trope in video games, where the player comes into town and sees the blacksmith, and the blacksmith says the exact same thing each and every time the player comes. And the blacksmith is, when the player leaves, the blacksmith is basically frozen in time. And no matter how long the player leaves, when they come back, the blacksmith says, "Hi, how are you? How can I help you? I have a number of things to sell. Just click here." It's just like, well, did the blacksmith get married? Did their daughter grow up? Did the blacksmith break a leg or get sick and suffer from some kind of plague or something? Did the blacksmith hire 3 more orphan children, and now they're older and he's trained them? Did the blacksmith's place burn down or get closed down by the king? Like, let those things happen in the world, and tying them to the players' backgrounds and the people that they know, like we mentioned earlier in the week, I think is pretty important. Getting back into the chat, Deadman says the Narnia books use that in the second book, as the heroes arrive to a ruin only to find out it was their castle previously. Exactly. When the players leave, who's to say things haven't changed? Maybe one of the players is like, my character's from the Feywild. Okay, you leave and you come back and it's like Rumpelstiltskin. Like time has moved differently. So when the players leave for a week, maybe many years have passed, and the once golden and pristine ivory towers of the castle have now been overgrown after 500 years, when the players have only left for like 5 days. You know what I mean? Rickard says, as a bit of a tangent, but I would imagine that the PCs would find it hard to find new allies and shelter. That's also a great way to disrupt things if the players are far too comfortable somewhere. And maybe I'm being a little harsh with this, but maybe the players don't want to explore your world. Like, you've created the desolate swamps, and you've created a world that you want the players to explore, right? Swamps and the oceans and the deserts and the mountain ranges and the Arctic cold, and the players are just like pretty much like settled themselves down, like, nah, I just want to have some drinks and open up a bar, right? Which does happen every once in a while. Maybe your players are just sedentary. Sometimes you got to throw a hand grenade into the into the room, right? Like, okay, you've been here 5 games, and I've created some interesting encounters for you trying to take care of this tavern you guys wanted to build, but come on, guys, grab your backpacks. The whole idea is we wanted to make adventurers go adventuring, leave, please. You know what I mean? Of course, you know, metagaming while is a good idea, just to go, listen, I spent a lot of time creating a bigger world. Please leave your home and go out there to the wide world. I don't care if you destroy it. Just leave home. You know, you know. Um, Tesla says you're still working on that same horseshoe. Yeah, yeah. Talking about the blacksmith doing the exact same thing every time that they meet them. You know, that it's a trope, and I understand that it can be quite difficult to like live in the lives of like the 87 NPCs you created in your world. But sometimes, come on now, the 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 tavern wench that always that's kind of cute and serves the heroes while they're sitting at the table, let her get married or have a child or something. Have them come back, and it's like, oh no, she doesn't work here anymore. Why? Because it's been 2 years, guys. She's moved on. You know, where is she at? She's in a wizard school. Remember that time that the wizard came in and talked to her and stuff? She was inspired and joined the wizard school. Like, let the place move and grow. Now, let's tie this further into family and ties, right? Like I mentioned before about the family home being destroyed or being destroyed in any number of ways, natural or unnatural. It's also possible that being far more arcane and more high tech, being more, you know, wondrous, it could be that whatever connection the player characters have to things outside of themselves, warlock patrons, divine entities for your clerics, maybe even some of your paladins, the rogue connected to the Assassin's Guild, the fighter that used to be part of army or something like that. Use those and pull on those and then change the environment, right? So let's go to your classic fighter. Used to be a soldier in the war. Now they're on their own. They're retired, or their services are no longer needed because the king that they used to fight for has been dispatched, and they've been taken over by another kingdom. Maybe you talk about changing the environment. Don't let the military roll through any place. The military will absolutely positively dominate any town they go to, for ancient till modern day, right? You'll see tents erected. They will take people's food, and those troops will need to be fed, so they'll take chickens and food and cows and sheep and things. They will instead of the tavern, they'll kick the doors in, and all of a sudden that'll be where the battle maps are held and where the military leaders are camped out. Instead of the docks and having, you know, open and free trade, at least half, if not more of them, will be taken over by military vessels. You know, you'll have open fields that used to be fields of corn and grain and such will be stomped down and into mud as they're going through maneuvers and training and such. You'll see siege machines being dragged into town and whatnot. Maybe the local forest where the players used to, you know, hide as a child are being cut down, and the wood is being harvested to create walls, or being cut for siege engines and whatnot. Now we can even take that and flip that on its head, and the players come back to a town where it's been abandoned, and they come back to old military barracks. Well, where maybe it's been abandoned and there's nothing but dead bodies. Maybe there isn't any military there at all, and it's been overrun. Maybe it's been burned down, and the players are running in and around where there's, I know this isn't medieval, but maybe there's like sandbags or trenches or barbed wire stretched out. I know I'm basically talking about like World War I, but whatever techniques are used, what are those things? The wooden spikes that are lashed together so that cavalry cannot run overrun the troops and whatnot. Maybe that's still held around like as a barrier to getting into the town and whatnot. The 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 tree limbs that are cut and just made into spikes and lashed together to make wooden walls erected haphazardly to protect the town is still there. Maybe there's some old siege engines that have been destroyed, or the wheels have been taken off and wagons turned on their side, used as cover and whatnot. And the players come in, and maybe there's even arcane things, the remnants of burning hands and grease spells and acid arrows that are now just pools of nasty, dead bodies being decomposing in pools of nasty acids and things of that nature. Of course, insects and carrion birds circling overhead, ready to eat yet one more meal. Undo says the Palisades, the Palisades where you're hopefully I am going to describe this well, where on like columns, like stone columns that hold over a large roof, where you have maybe a marketplace. Boy, wow, my brain is not working. A marketplace, a bazaar where people are able to sell their wares, and the players are used to seeing this place, and maybe that place has been overrun or closed down by a like a dictator or something. Any number of things. Dead Man brings up the Frisian horses. I'm not familiar with your reference there, sir. Please educate me. Because I hear my brain clicking and it's not working for me. But also politically, things can change as well. For example, a very open, free town where tieflings and drow and your dragonborn have been walking around like it's no big thing. Maybe you've added in some ogres and giants and things like that. They're just walking around like, hey, how you doing? What's going on? No big deal. Minotaurs and ogres, and just like, hey, giving each other hugs and whatnot. And then maybe the heroes, your PCs, come back, and now the place is a police state. Show me your papers. Who are you? Who's that scaled creature standing with you? You have to come see the guards and whatnot. All that kind of business. Like maybe it's a police state when they return to town, and politically things have changed. Dead Man says the Frisian horses is the name of the spike barrier. Thank you very much. It's that spiked barrier where it's like the wooden things are linked together. I'm linking my fingers together in a really bad visual representation of that. But you understand what I'm saying, where they're lashed together so that even if you turn them over, if they turned over, there's still a spike sticking up, and you can't take. It's very difficult to get your horses through, or if they're like chariots or something like that, you can't get through them. But of course, there's enough space for human beings to slide between those things. So yeah, they're like Scott posts caltrops for storm giants. But yeah, yeah, exactly. But again, coming to a free state, and then you get there and you see all those things around, hundreds of them lashed together and around the town. You might be thinking like, what the horse trops? Yeah. Dead Man says similar to jacks or D4s. And it hurts just as much when you step on them. Yeah, how many times have we done that, man? Somebody drops a D4 on the ground, and you're just hitting your face palming like, dude, the D4's got the flattest surface. Why are you always dropping it on the ground, on the floor or something? But anyway, but you get what I'm saying, right? Where take some place they're familiar with and flip it on its head, and for whatever reason, going back to the slain white dragon or whatnot, the players kill the dragon, take the stuff, they leave, they're like, yay, we're heroes. They come back and come to find out there's something living in the bones of that dragon. Or the PCs, of course, the classic thing is, I want to make dragon scale armor, so now the PCs need to bring people up and maybe into the high Arctic mountains to then set up camps to try to harvest the meat and bones and the skin from the dragon, and then even that becomes its own territory as more and more people come to this location. Dead Man says dropping it and losing it. Yeah, of course they lost it because they didn't want to roll a 1, you know. Oh man, Tesla Ranger says the Cheval de Frise, Cheval de Frise was a I'm pronouncing that wrong. I'm butchering it, but sorry. The Cheval de Frise was a medieval defense anti-cavalry measure consisting of a portable frame, sometimes just a simple log, covered with many projecting long iron or wooden spikes or spears. Wikipedia. Yeah, because I would have never pulled that out. But yes, but absolutely. Again, not only the things I'm talking about, not only can just be backdrop and description, but you can give them gaming stats, right? There's no reason why we can't game all the things that I'm talking about, from hiding behind the spikes, using them as cover and or possible harm to people. For example, I've heard people complain about the I believe it's the shove action, knockdown action, shove action, where hey, you attack the person, strength versus strength, you either shove them 5 feet or they fall prone, right? And the complaint is, well, on their action, all they have to do is stand up. It's like, yeah, without, in a vacuum, without context, yeah, shove maneuver is stupid. But what are you shoving them into, or why are you shoving them down? If you're standing in waist deep water and you knock someone down, they are now underwater. If you shove somebody 5 feet into a spiked barrier, they've now just impaled themselves on a spiked barrier, right? If you're standing on a narrow ledge you're on a rickety old building that's on fire and the roof is about to collapse. If you shove someone 5 feet into a hole in the roof and they fall 20 feet down into a fire, that's great. So context has everything to do with it, and the environment very much has a lot to do with it. For example, going back to the storm ravaged town and you're fighting enemies on the docks, and maybe there's tentacles or I'm going to butcher the name, Sahogan, so whatever, the shark people, right? They come up, they crawl themselves up on the dock. Maybe there's lizard folk. You want your players fighting on the docks as a sea foam splashes across the docks, and then every moment there's like 30-foot waves that are crashing in. Yeah, shove maneuver, somebody 5 feet over the edge. Now, of course, shoving shark people back into the water isn't going to do much, which you're like, ooh, that's their environment. Ooh, they're adapted to that. That's not going to do anything. And maybe every other round, a 30-foot wave comes in and, oh, maybe it shoves the players. They've got to make strength saves and hold on so they don't get washed over into the sea. You know what I mean? Like, it's the idea is using the environment. Now, yeah, I'm going to self-promote here slightly. That's what the hell these things are about. It's like, oh, I don't have an idea. What am I going to use? I'm going to go for, let's see if I can grab this out of here. I'm going to grab my aquatic book and come up with something from there. Or I'm going to, what the hell is this? I'm going to take my plains and grasslands and put something on the savannah, right? It's the idea of coming up with something or reskinning things that we already have in our rules, and finding those layers, those traps, those obstacles, giving them some context that the players are used to, and then throwing it into your game. For example, your divine characters or your warlock type characters might know about an omen that when the stars align, or every 100 years something happens, or the gods are displeased because your big bads have been burning down the temples of one or multiples of the gods in your pantheon, and maybe they're sending something down into this world that is completely arcane and ravaging the countryside, right? Like one of the gods is like, oh, you want to destroy my temples? Fine, I'm gonna fire lightning bolts down on you, and you're just gonna, I don't care who I hit, I'm just pissed off. And maybe the cleric is like, the Tempest cleric is like, guys, I can't control this. Like, I'm not going to get hit by lightning, but you guys might, right? I'm not going to get hit by lightning, but here, this is why you guys should have never burned down these temples. You know what I mean? And yeah, I can protect you for a short time, but the city burning down, I can't do anything about that. The gods are pissed off. I'm just an agent of them. I'm just glad that I'm not on their bad side. You know what I mean? You can have those, shadow beasts and displacer beasts and shadow demons released into the land, ravaging the place, as the players are like trying to run and hide for cover because the gods are pissed off or something. Scott Post says pushed into the water to be dragged across barnacle piers by the waves or Sahuagin pets. Hell yeah. I mean, who says the Sahuagins rode in on a giant kraken or something, or manta rays or sharks or something, and they push the PCs down into the water and they get dragged down there. Of course, PCs might be in heavy armor. They have to breathe and swim. They are in a location that their enemy has the complete advantage. And yeah, shove maneuver, in a vacuum or in a flat plane or against a blue screen, nothing. Shove maneuver, getting shoved 5 feet over the edge of a dock during a storm by Sahuagin riding on sharks. Yeah, pretty brutal. You know what I mean? It's not fighting a giant alligator isn't the problem. It's fighting a giant alligator in a swamp in their environment is the problem, right? That's where the horror comes in. It's not fighting a shark, it's fighting a shark underwater. So Rickard says, that said, knocking an opponent down in medieval warfare was a pretty good maneuver to win the combat. That is not really reflected in the game. Well, it depends on. I'm going to half argue with you here because I'm. This is something that I have thought about, and when I'm doing the cinematic environs books, does come up. So, first level characters, if you knock someone down, I get 1 attack, I knock down the hobgoblin, right? I knock them prone, I disarm them or something. Now it's the hobgoblin's turn. Hobgoblin reaches down, picks up their weapon. Hobgoblin falls prone, stands up. Yes, an untrained combatant, one-on-one in a duel, yeah, that combatant will stand up. Hey, your character's first level, you tried to knock them down. You don't have the ability to press the advantage. They stand up on their attack. Sure. You're 5th level now. You get 2 attacks. I'm pulling this out of my ass, right? But let's say you have 2 attacks, or you're able to do 2 things. First attack, I knock them down. Now they're prone. I get advantage. My second attack, I stab them in their chest, right? Or my first attack, I knock them down. My compatriot, my ally, my person in my party takes their spear. Oh, you knock them down. Now I get advantage to hit them while they're down, right? It is reflected if you consider the capabilities of the party. And also, like you're saying, not reflecting the game, where is this happening? Is this happening on a battlefield? Hey, there are dead bodies behind you. I go for my shove maneuver. Oh, because there's so many dead bodies, it is difficult terrain, and maybe you get disadvantage to resist being knocked down because everywhere you stand is a tripping hazard, right? I'm going to knock you down and have you fall over a spike or an exposed spear or one of those Frisian horses that we talked about, right? So the thing is that it's all about context. On a flat plane with nothing around and the environment is neutral, the environment has no effect on things, sure. But sorry, I'm reading in the chat. But the thing is that when added in with other enemies, the chaos of battle, let's say, because I'm talking about the battlefield, right? Where someone gets knocked down and then there's random cavalry running by. There are allies who are like, oh, there's an opponent that just got knocked down. I wasn't thinking about attacking them, but hey, they're easy to hit. Rickard says full plate going down is when things go for the kill. This is trained combatant. 2 attacks is always better than a knockdown and an attack. Damage is better than knockdown. Again, that depends, right? Like, how about if you knock someone down and then you cover them with something heavy, or of course, the game, is very, how can I say this? It is 5th edition is geared more towards the cinematic than the realistic. And oftentimes what we do is we're layering on our perceived realism over a game that is not designed for that, unless we as a group design it for that. For example, full plate, you could also make the case that anyone dressed in full plate has disadvantage trying to stand back up, right? And like Rickard says, my point is that in real life, combat going down means bad times. The game combat is just meh. Well, of course, most common people in full plate have maybe 5 hit points, right? So if you knock someone down and stab them with a sword with advantage, you do have the advantage. You may be thinking, well, if they're 5th level and they've got 87 hit points, right, that hitting them with a sword wouldn't kill them. Well, no, it wouldn't, because they've got 87 hit points. But the majority of people are killed pretty much with a dagger. So is it better to stab someone twice, or is it better for me to get advantage to hit them and then stab them? It's our context. The average human being doesn't. The average human being, even a skilled fighter, is killed by a sword. So, like Rickard says, but if they already have 5 hit points, would kill them with a normal attack anyway. So the point is negated. That said, Squirrel. Nah, I don't say. I think that has something to do with it. I would rather hit someone with advantage than try to hit someone twice, because then the idea is that they can hit me back. But if I knock them down and then one of my companions puts their foot on their chest and keeps them from standing up, then they're gone. Again, context, right? In a vacuum, whatever. In a pitched battle, when you're using the environment around you, knocking them down in a pit, knocking them down over the side of a castle wall that's 30 feet up, right? It doesn't matter how many hit points you have. If I knock you off of a 30-foot wall and you survive, you've got to come back up the 30-foot wall, right? So that in itself, if you're fighting on a frozen lake and someone shatters the frozen lake and knocks 37 warriors, that a barbarian horde that's coming through, it sets up a situation where, yeah, sure, I can attack them one-on-one, but is it more efficient? Is it better to shatter the frozen lake to knock them, into the waters or something? Yeah, right. And of course, role-playing games don't take in a lot of things. It doesn't take in lack of sleep. It doesn't take in morale. It doesn't take into account exhaustion. It doesn't take into account a ton of those things. Now, we as role players can go, you know what? Game doesn't include that. You know what? I'm going to include that. I'm going to put that in my game, right? That is a thing. The game doesn't take into phalanx maneuvers. The game doesn't take into account being trampled by a horde of individuals by accident or on purpose. So it's up to us to say how much are we going to twist? What kind of dial are we going to turn? Are we going to make this extremely cinematic? Taking a long rest to completely heal from dangerous wounds. Is that how we're going to do it? That seems rather, many of us would go, that doesn't make sense. You've been stabbed and punched and shot. Well, it depends on how cinematic you want to be, right? Are we going to turn the dial of realism up? Well, if we're going to turn it up, we together are going to decide what rules are we going to use. How realistic do we want this to appear? What rules that already exist are far too fantastical? So it's just a matter of turning the dial. But like 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons, the dial's turned all the way up to cinematic. The realism part of it is pretty much a side note, except for narrative purposes. So yeah, Rickard says, to simplify it, in real life, it was closer to a coup de grace situation. In the game, it's not really near that level. If I can deal 12 damage per attack, 24 damage might kill them. 12, probably not. Now, it was that knockdown. Now, if it was that knockdown did more than advantage, it would make more sense. I hear you, but what I think we fail to realize is that the characters that we play, advantage doesn't seem like it's that much of an advantage, because the player characters are already good at what they do. Me, as a normal human being with 0 combat bonuses, getting advantage is a huge deal, right? Again, it's context. A 5th level fighter is just like, I want to hit this guy twice and move on. Like, Like it's the I'm going to kill this guy and turn my back to him, and they're going to fall face forward into the mud. The explosion is going off in the background because I'm kick ass, right? But your zero level human advantage is a huge deal. And hell no, am I going to fight somebody one on one? Hell no, I'm gonna squeeze my shoulders in with like 12 other dudes with spikes, and that advantage is something, right? Deadman says some systems give a bonus to damage on a prone character. Now again, striking someone down and getting like, what is it, a critical hit, I think, on incapacitated characters are a thing. You know what I mean? So again, there's the context of that. Me fighting somebody one-on-one, my ass is going to run because I won't win. But me fighting someone one-on-one and then realizing that maybe they get attacked from behind by someone, or someone throws a tarp over their head and knocks them to the ground. Someone else, tackles them to the ground and pins their legs down in their arm when someone else comes in with a spear, right? So sure, like Rickard is saying, it's a +5 to the attack more or less, so it's good to hit, but you still have that if you choose 2 attacks versus knockdown and attack. Nah, I wouldn't get a +5. Dude, I'm a weak ass dude with no combat skills thrown into a battle. A lot of soldiers, maybe they get maybe a +1. On a good day, a +2. That's pretty pretty significant. Yeah, 2 attacks equals 2d20. No. Each attack. I got a 50. Let's say I got 10s. That's 50 chance of me hitting. If I miss on my first 50 chance, then I might hit on my second 50 chance. Whereas if in a circumstance with me one-on-one with somebody else, my ass is probably not going to do that. You know what I mean? I hear what you're saying, but the narrative versus the math are 2 different things, right? It's the idea of, for example, a rogue has sneak attack, right? Attack somebody from behind, stab them, they do more damage. That doesn't necessarily mean someone else is going to go, well, since I'm not a rogue, I'm not going to attack someone from behind. It's the narrative portion. Rickard says the math works out the same. You still roll 2d20 and check if they attack, but you have the chance that the lower d20 also deals damage. I hear what you're saying. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that you're not right. What I'm saying is that we are ignoring the narrative portion of this. You know what I mean? In the sense that on a flat plane, that math works exactly what you're saying. The context of what's going on in and around whatever combat this is completely different, right? Because something else we're not taking into account. Dungeons and Dragons doesn't take into account wounds. Whether you have 1 hit point or 200 hit points, you are not at any particular disadvantage. So we're mixing in real life. How can I say this? We're mixing in real life things that don't matter in 5th edition. Along an 8-foot spear in real life is more efficient than a 3-foot sword, right? But we don't take that into account. So it's the idea of people saying firearms are more powerful than, introducing firearms into medieval worlds would disrupt the game. And I'm saying, well, the game doesn't care about that, right? The game doesn't care about the real life aspect of it. It's Festival Ranger says it's only a flesh wound, right? So the real life aspect of knocking someone down and stabbing them, 5th edition doesn't care about that, because it doesn't care about the other things that in real life would matter too. Footing, weather, exhaustion, other tactical methods of being distracted. Did you have a good night's sleep? None of that matters. So you taking one, we can argue about it because we are arguing about something that the game doesn't care about, because the real life aspect of it it's kind of like saying, well, this isn't realistic, and then 30 people around the table will also raise their hand and go, well, guess what, these other things aren't realistic either. So do you include all the other realistic things that are not included in which something that should be considered realistic and is not? You know what I mean? So like Rickard says, it's only just that knockdown is way underpowered in a game than in real life, which is a problem because you are incentivizing to just go to the the pinata dance. Yeah. So the game becomes less cinematic because the right choice is always do as much damage as you can. But what I'm saying is the other realistic part of that is I agree with what you're saying, because the other realistic part of that is if you stab someone, they're not weaker, right? So that's not realistic either. So the incentive is not to stab them and take advantage of their weakness. The incentive is to stab them and stab them and stab them until they die, instead of stabbing them. Like, for example, Dungeons and Dragons doesn't care about you stabbing someone and then using maybe your quickness to outrun them and outmaneuver them and let them die and bleed to death, right? That's a combat maneuver. I'm going to stab you and then parry the hell out of you and stand behind my shield, let you swing once or twice, 3 times, get weaker, and then take advantage of your weakness. That's not a realistic thing either. And my point being is that you can't worry about that, right? I hear what you're saying, and it does incentivize one thing over another. My contention is that if you use the environment, which is in a game, if you look it up, it's spread around the book, but it's in the game. You could increase the incentivization of it. Is that a word? Incentivization of it by making it an optimal choice, right? Like you said, Rickard says, so the game becomes less cinematic, but you also say moving in combat, doing maneuvers, etc., is just suboptimal choices. And I contend with you that we can optimize those choices by kicking people off of castle walls. Hold on for 2 seconds. Hey, babe. Yeah. There's 2 frogs in there. Okay. Yeah. Okay. You guys can tell we got to the hour mark. All right. Love you, baby. Bye. Sorry, guys. To put a pin in what Rickard is saying, not a pin in it, because we're not really arguing. We're on the same side. We're coming at it from 2 angles. To put a pin in what Rickard is saying about being suboptimal, my point is that self-promotion, by using these, some and many of those maneuvers become a better choice, right? If you're fighting on a frozen lake and there's an open spot, shoving somebody 5 feet and having them fall back into frozen waters might be a better optimal choice than doing 103 points of damage, right? Rickard says, but the problem is that the game offloads it to the DM to solve the mechanical problem. And me being what I am, the self-appointed third pillarist. Not, I would call myself self-appointed environmentalist, but that kind of it comes off cross-wrong. But as your self-appointed third pillarist, my feeling is that it doesn't need to be offloaded to the DM, right? The idea is that, hey, as the DM, if you use the third pillar of gaming, you can throw that in. My feeling is throw it in the player's hands. Like, hey, guess what? Guys, you're a skilled fighter. You do realize that you could kick that dude back into a spiked wall. They can't move, and then you can cut their throat, right? Like, me as the DM, I want to encourage the players to use it. Ricker says, you've helped DMs to not have to do all the work themselves. Yeah, that's my point, right? Like, we're both of us are having our little fake fight because we're whatever. I absolutely agree with you, right? But this little fake back and forth that we're doing of like, oh, but this doesn't work, but that's a suboptimal. What we're doing is we're pointing out those deficiencies, and then how I'm looking at it is like, yeah, they're real deficiencies, but there's other things we can use. Now, do I feel that we can do house rules and change those things around? And, is it better? What happens when you fall down in plate mail armor, or if your leg gets stabbed with an arrow, why aren't you moving slower? We can do those, make those house rules. But what I'm doing is I'm exploiting the rules that are already there, the traps, the layer actions, the environmental things that already exist in the game, but they're spread throughout the books. and putting them together and then manipulating those and twisting those and go, oh, you need to make an acrobatics check. Oh, let me look up acrobatics. Oh, this includes drowning rules. Where's that at? Tight spaces. Where's that at? Balance rules. Where's that at? And then taking those and exploiting them and then going, hey, the person that complains, my bard can't do as much damage as the barbarian, right? And then me as a DM, I toss it back into the players and go, okay, barbarian, you get 2 attacks, you can kill 2 enemies. But the bard over there, hey, if you cause a rock slide, you can kill 17 of those guys. Who's more effective? You know what I mean? The barbarian's dealing out 100 points of damage per hit. The bard can only deal out maybe 17 points of damage, but if he causes a rock slide, he can take out more enemies. Which is more effective? You know, and then putting people into different situations. Hey, the archer in the group has been killing enemies from so far away that the hand-to-hand people are like sitting back twiddling their thumbs until they get into deep fog or smoke or heavy winds, torrential rains. Now the archer's like, shit, I can't hit anything from here. Guys, you're going to have to protect me. You got to wait for these enemies to get close. Then all of a sudden the fighter and the ranger is like, okay, cool. Now we get to get into some hand-to-hand combat. We get to get, up and close now. Now this is my thing. Archer, stand back. Let me do my thing. Maybe the spotlight moves around. So my feeling is use and abuse the environment. You know what I'm saying? It's like, oh shit, that doesn't work, man. That shove maneuver doesn't work. It's stupid. And then me, I'm trying to give tools to the DM. Like, yeah, it'll work. Where are you at? Where are you standing on the docks? And there's a big giant tentacle coming behind the big bad you're fighting. Kick his ass into the water and let him get eaten by a shark. Why not? You know what I mean? That kind of thing. So Undo says it depends. It depends. The same situation can happen with a single attack being suboptimal if you are in the king's court. yeah, absolutely. Rickard says, but could you justify swinging from the chandelier like some old Errol Flynn movie? In real life, hell no. But in a cinematic way, yeah. And as a matter of fact, I even addressed that. In the beginning of each of these books, I address the three types of settings or themes: cinematic, gritty, and real, right? So it depends on how you and your players want to agree on how the game goes about. So let me give you an example. If you want to go very cinematic, you could just say, when a player says to you, I want to swing on the chandelier to go across the table, land on the other side, and have a sword fight on, kicking dishes off the table and have this Errol Finn flight with Big Bad on the other side, right? Depending on how you adjust it, Rickard says, I still find it hard to justify it from a mechanical move. It would look cool, but you just make the combat harder on yourself. I do agree with the forward in the book. So to enlighten people what you're talking about, you have to, you meaning me meaning us, we have to decide what we're going to do at the table, right? So Errol Flynn moves: swing on a chandelier, dive roll across the table, backflip. I'm going to jump off the wall and do a Superman punch, right? Okay. How cinematic do you want your game? If you want it very cinematic, don't make it you don't have to make it a mechanical thing at all, right? Don't force someone to make a roll to do something that ultimately doesn't matter, right? Don't ask for rolls that the only outcome is something bad. If a player says, I want to swing on a chandelier to get across the table, and you say make an acrobatics check, right? If they fail, the only thing that they fail is that they don't do it, and it fails. So that's bad. If they succeed, what's the good thing that comes out of it? If you as a DM go, well, there's no good thing to come out of it, there's no point in asking for the bad roll, right? If there's no good, why punish the person for doing it? I.e., if you want to go far more cinematic, let them do it. Who cares what it looks like? When John Wick slides under a table with pistols, or somebody wants to jump through the air in slow motion and fire an arrow or something like that, who cares? Don't make a roll for it. If you're going very cinematic, right? That way you're not punishing your players and you encourage them to come up with really dynamic things to do. But if you want to go far more gritty or realistic, then you start asking for the rolls where you got to make an acrobatics check. Now, on the other hand, you could make a benefit for somebody doing that. Hey, if I'm going to ask for them to make, say, an acrobatics check in the same position, swing on the chandelier, jump across, fight the bad guy, right? Hey, if because in the book there's an if then section, if you make the acrobatics check, then I'll give you advantage on the roll. Or if you make the acrobatics check, then I'm going to say, well, you know what? All the people in the way that are having dinner in the king's court and stuff, and you want to swing across the chandelier to get the other side, you don't have to worry about having to go all the way around the table to go all the way around the other side to fight the bad guy. I'm just going to let your ass just jump across the table and get to the other side. Don't even worry about how much it costs you to move. Or there's so many people in the king's court that it's like, I don't know, difficult terrain or something like that. Or the guards are there and you will not elicit an opportunity attack if you swing across the chandelier. So for Professor Dogo, hey, I haven't heard of you before, but hey, Professor Dogo says the enemies are stunned by your flashy moves. Exactly. Or what you can come up with all these little trinkets, I guess, little like if then, like if you're willing to take the chance that you'll fail, then I'm going to give you a benefit for doing it, right? Like Rickard says, cinematic version, acrobatics check equals you do it as a minor action, else it is a move action, or you get advantage or something, as you say, right? And it like I'm not. It doesn't have to be something I'm saying. What I'm saying is you could offer a bit of a benefit for it. Like, oh, hey, do an acrobatics check. You don't worry about it. You're not even going to have. There's no opportunity attacks at all, right? You do the acrobatics check. I'm going to waive the move, right? The 20 feet it takes you to move across. Don't worry about it. Your character just moves all that distance. You know what I mean? Whatever the case may be. Or there's 7 guards in front of you, but you want to swing across the chandelier and get over their heads and not have to move through their space. Yeah, I'll let you do it. I mean, so there should be a benefit on the other side of the. If you're going to add in skill checks and there's a drawback, there should be benefits to it. Otherwise, don't bother rolling at all and just let players do cool things. Hey, I'm going to ride my mount and then jump off the mount and tackle him to the ground and then attack him and blah, 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 blah. Don't even have a roll. Just make it, describe it narratively, even if it sounds like the players are getting an advantage in it, right? Like don't apply an advantage or disadvantage to it. Just make it cool. Like if a player says, well, I'm going to take my shield and block his attack, and then I'm going to drive him back on his heels, and then I'm going to take him and stab him with his sword. The whole I'm going to drive him back with the shield and blah, blah, blah. Don't get into the idea of, well, you don't have shield bash, and that's an extra attack. Don't like ignore all that, right? The mechanically, I'm going to roll to attack. I attack the guy. I see what happens, right? The narrative portion of it. I'm going to sidestep, and then I'm going to block his sword, ding, 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 and then I'm going to drive his sword up, and then when I drive his sword up, I'm going to swing towards his stomach, slashing towards his stomach like a feint or whatever, right? Whatever. That's narrative. That's just a narrative thing. I block his sword, and then I'm going to grab his wrist, and when his just time it and grab his wrist, and when his wrist is there, I'm going to take my axe and hack him on top of his head. Just narrative. Right? You got to make a grapple roll, and you only get one attack. You can't do, but like drop. And I'm saying this specifically to go cinematic. Like, Rickard also says, also fail forward. Yeah. Player fails to jump across table on the chandelier. Okay, instead of going all the way across the chandelier, you land directly on top of the table, or you land in front of the enemy. But you don't have disadvantage to be hit. Maybe you just failed to get the advantage that you wanted. Oh, darn! I was going to give you this other. If you made that roll, man, I was going to let you do an extra D6 damage or something. You can do that as a GM. Hey, I'll let you do more damage if you succeed, but you failed. So sorry, dude. And he's like, oh, I really wanted that, and maybe the player tries to do something else again, those kind of things. So I'm a big proponent of, there are no RPG police, right? No one's going to come to your table and go, you're playing it wrong. Blah. I mean, there's plenty of videos out there, and there's plenty of people on the internet that are like, you can't just give extra damage to players when they do things like that. Why not? What is it? RPG police knocking on the door? Hello? 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 How are you playing the game? You can't add damage damage reduction to armor instead of doing armor class traditionally. You can't just have plate mails, subtract 6 points of damage, and medium armor subtract 4 points of damage, and light armor subtract 2 points of damage. You can't do that. It's like that. They don't exist. Rickard says you land where you want, but the chandelier crashes and the sound sounds throughout the castle, alerting the guards. Hell yeah. I'm going to sneak up behind the guard and slit his throat, being quiet. Okay, make a roll. Stealth roll. Oh, you failed your stealth roll. Damn it. He yells out too late. You're like, guards. And you still stab him, but he makes too much noise. Of course. Fail forward. I try to jump across the ledge. Ooh, that's a fall far. What did you roll? Tesla Ranger says, D&D PD, open up. Hello, open up. Drop the dice. Drop the dice. Back away from the D&D book. Put the character sheet down. Back away. What is that? Pizza in your hand? Get him. Rickard says, before we end, won't make it tomorrow, but we'll catch you again on Monday, and I'll be on the Discord all weekend. Of course. You got it, man. You got it. Rickard says, step away from the dice. Yeah. It's a D20. Get him. Stop him before he rolls a 20. Oh man, a cop show. That would be a cool cop show, man. It'd be kind of strange. Bunch of kids in basements, like, what are you really? Get down! Get the F down! Oh man, he's got dice in his hand. Watch out! Everybody like dives to the ground. Kids sitting at the table, like, really, dude? Anyway, guys, everyone have a great one. Thanks, Rickard, for the back and forth. I haven't had one of those in a while. You know what? I always thought it would be cool to have a channel with a panel of people who all disagree on something where we just argue all the time. Very, very difficult to find someone to recruit to be on the channel so that we could argue every day, but that would be kind of cool. Rickard says, my pleasure. Absolutely. I bow to you, sir. Scott says, have a good one. Well, no, you have a good one. By the way, I don't know if you guys have ever noticed, like you guys wouldn't notice it, but sometimes you guys see in the channel, it's like subscribe here. There's a video here. Maybe take a look at the video over here. So I haven't done that point to the thing that doesn't exist yet. But guys, subscribe. Take a look at the other videos. Everybody have a good one. Rickard says, I could always play the devil's advocate. Consider that more serious than you might think if you're willing to be on camera. People put that in the back of your heads. Maybe if somebody out there wants to do that, contact me. Maybe it's a thing. It's a thing I had thought about. But yeah, keep it in there. You got it, man. Everyone have a great one. Got to head off to work. Thank you very much. I will see thee tomorrow. I know you won't be able to make it, but you are always welcome, sir. Have a great one, guys. Bye.